There have been a couple of times where I thought, oh my God, who do I think I am to open the US market for Tajik handicrafts? And then I'll get an email or a text message from Bakardin or Munira telling me how much they value what we're trying to do. And what I do is so tiny compared to the challenges that they face. Outside the capital city of Dushanbe, everybody experiences electrical shortages, which means at some point the electricity goes off for anywhere from 6 to 14 hours. And it's not always predictable. So for example, one of the most amazing evenings I spent when I was in Tajikistan was at this homestay. After dinner, we all gathered in one of the rooms, and we had the wood fire burning to keep it warm because the electricity was out. Munira was embroidering some new patterns by battery-operated light. The husband and wife were over in one corner practicing their hand weaving, and then right over here was Jamshed, who is the executive director of the Tourism Association, and he was busy transferring the traditional embroidery patterns with a chalk pen onto pieces of fabric using the designs that Munira had created. And my husband and I were just sitting back in amazement at the collaboration and the sense of family and community that was going on. It was wonderful. There's a whole psychological barrier that is bridged if the products are physically here in the US and a buyer knows they can buy from someone in the US. I pay the shipping charges. I buy the products from the artisans. And when I was in Tajikistan, I really began to get a sense of the internal challenges of shipping, because Tajikistan is landlocked. The land routes are unreliable. For example, Munira Akilova, who is the designer for Armor Gun Handicrafts, she lives up here in Khujand, which is another major Silk Road center. She does the design work here, and she creates kits for the ladies who will do the embroidery work. And if you're sending packages or you're just traveling internally, you go down to the local taxi station, which is just a collection of people with private cars. And they say, I'm driving to Panjakent, I'm going to Dushanbe. You pick your car, you have a chat with the driver, you give them the package, you give them the phone number of the person they're going to be delivered to at the other end. And when they get to that location, they then call the recipient, or when they get close, and they'll drive over, pay the taxi driver, and pick up the delivery. So these kits travel by taxi down here to Panjakent. If the weather's good, if there are no problems, if the tunnels are open. Meanwhile, the ladies in the mountain villages are 2 to 3 hours away. So when they know kits are coming, they will come down from the mountains to Panjakent, pick up their kits, take them back up into the mountain villages, do the work, and then when the embroidery work is finished, they have to make the trip back down the hill, which are pretty steep hills, to Panjakent, and then they get sent again by taxi back up here to Khujand, where Munira has another collection of women who do the finishing work, the seams, the final finishing work. Once the products are complete, then She puts them in another taxi that goes down here and then goes down to Dushanbe. And there's 2 tunnels on this route. One of them is the Anzob Tunnel, which is affectionately known as the Tunnel of Death. It's 6 kilometers through the mountains, and the ventilation is not great. And Bakruddin, who is one of my major coordinators, turns out he has a childhood friend who won the green card lottery and moved to New York in 2010. And he started a shipping business. We've created a relationship so that now products get shipped directly from Tajikistan to Brooklyn. And when they get to Brooklyn, Anvar puts them in a box and ships them to me here in Albuquerque using priority mail. So it means I get things in 7 to 10 days, door to door, and they don't have to change hands. It's miraculous. Typically I get asked 2 questions to start with. Usually the first one is, now where is Tajikistan again? If you think of the Himalaya mountains and you follow them west, at the western edge, the tail curls up. And where that tail curls up is the Pamir Mountains of Tajikistan. The second question that I always get asked is, how in the world did I connect with Tajikistan from Albuquerque, New Mexico? When I retired from practicing law at the end of 2011, I knew I wanted to go back to where my heart had always been, which was the international connections. So I started volunteering with a local organization here in Albuquerque that hosts short-term visiting professional delegations from all over the world. We had our first delegation from Tajikistan in 2013. In 2014, we hosted what was then our second delegation, and one of the members of that delegation was Bakruddin Isamutinov. And he works in ecotourism and handicraft promotion, which are very closely tied in Tajikistan. We learned that no one was working to import Tajik handicrafts. And by the end of the week, I just said, well, somebody's got to take a leap of faith, and okay, I'll do it. So that's how I got started. Central to the concept of fair trade is that the object of the business is to support the economic development of people from vulnerable populations. And Tajikistan is the poorest of the former Soviet republics. Because there are so few jobs, something like 50% of the adult male population is living abroad, primarily in Russia, working as migrant labor. So husbands and sons are in Russia, trying to find essentially a minimum wage job. So being able to enter the U.S. market and sell products allows them to build something beyond daily survival. All of my artisans are either individual artisans or family businesses, or they're small workshops involving rural women for whom this is the only source of income. Right now, everything is an experiment because there are no Tajik products in the U.S. So as a fair trade business, I'm really focused on opening the market to improve the economic conditions for the artisans in Tajikistan. I'm also passionate about creating the people-to-people connection. I'm convinced that it's those people-to-people grassroots connections that are going to transform the face of the earth. It's not going to be governments and institutions. It's going to be sitting and talking to people, sharing a meal.